So the Lions officially broke out the pads on day 5 of training camp. You know there's a bunch of storylines that we got to talk about. And that starts right now. What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit training camp observation. I'm Miko, and in today's video, we're going to be recapping day 5 of Lions training camp and talking about some of the biggest news, biggest storylines, and biggest observations to come out from day 5 of training camp. Now, for me personally, this is a day that I have been waiting for. I couldn't wait for the Lions to finally get into pads because there's certain players that I've been highlighting and feeling like, you know what, they're really going to come to life in training camp once they're able to hit. And then there's other players that you just want to see, like, hey, have they drastically improved? So we got a little bit of that in today, even though the Lions didn't have the longest practice during day 5 of training camp. But one of the things that we definitely got to see that has a lot of people talking and has a lot of people excited was the matchup between Aidan Hutchinson and Penei Sewell. Now, these are two of the Lions' better players and two of their cornerstone pieces for the franchise for the next few years. And it's essentially what you would expect when these two guys square off against each other. One guy is going to probably get the better of him in one rep, which is the case with Penei Sewell. And then in another rep, Aidan also gets his revenge and shows that he's also making strides and making improvements in his game. And overall, this is really exciting to me because obviously Penei is going into his 3rd year. And really, we want to see Penei continue to make that upward climb that he's had over the first 2 years of his career and really start to solidify himself as one of the better tackles, period. Not just right tackles, but best tackles in the NFL. And I truly believe that Penei has that type of ability when you look at just how sound he is in his technique and just the overall athleticism that he brings to the position. I'm willing to say, even right now, that Penei Sewell probably is one of the most athletic tackles outside of Trent Williams, who is by far considered a freak athlete in his own regard. Now, as for Aidan is proving to be doing just what I kind of highlighted in the last video I did when highlighting the fact about Aidan making the top 100 list. He's showing the progression to actually be consistent in his pass rushing and also to start rushing with a plan and having a plan of attack when attacking various offensive linemen. The fact that he was able to lose a rep, but then immediately come back in his next rep and soundly beat Penei Sewell is a clear sign that he's learning and getting better at understanding how to attack offensive linemen and understanding how he can mix and match his different pass rush moves to find success in the NFL. Like I've been saying, if Hutch continues to develop that part of his game and really become a true technician when it comes to rushing the passer, he is going to be a nightmare for offenses to deal with because he already has the size and he's way more athletic than I think even I sometimes give him credit for. So again, a really good day from Hutch and a really good day from Sewell as they continue to really stack on their good days throughout training camp so far. Now, some other players that have actually been having some good training camps, but that we haven't really talked about a lot lately are Jonah Jackson and Taylor Decker, two of the other better offensive linemen, and specifically on the left side of the line, that really don't get a ton of shine because they're veterans. And for the most part, we just kind of expect that, they're going to do their job and they're going to show up and constantly be relied upon. But with the first day of pads coming about, Jonah Jackson and Taylor Decker basically took this as an opportunity to flex their muscle as well and put a lot of people on notice to remind them, yeah, we're here too. It's not just Frank. It's not just Penei. The left side of the line is doing work too. At various points throughout practice, Jonah showed that he can be just as dominant and just as an impactful force for this offensive line, both in beating John Kaminsky in one-on-ones, also beating Benito Jones, and then going into team drills and dominating Isaiah Buggs as well. I've been saying for a long time that Jonah Jackson is probably the most underrated and underappreciated player on this Lions team. And for a player that is looking to get a long-term extension and probably stay with the Lions long-term, these are the types of things that Jonah is going to have to continue to do once the season starts to really make the decision for Brad Holmes really difficult in terms of letting him go, because Jonah should be a Lion for life. That's how dominant and how important he is, not just to this team's success, but just to the overall cohesiveness to that offensive line. And when it comes to Taylor Decker, Taylor's been doing this for a number of years now. Again, he's technically one of the older vets on the team, but he just is a guy that continues to just do his job. He matched up multiple times throughout practice with Charles Harris and Romeo Okwara and basically took care of both guys. And these are two of the better pass rushers that the Lions have on their team right now. And for Taylor to again be flexing his muscles and showing that, like, hey, he is still a quality left tackle is just one of those things that I like, much like with Jonah. I just think he kind of just gets overlooked at times because again, we have so much stock built into Penei Sewell. We have so much faith and we've seen so much out of Frank. And Taylor's been here for so long that I sometimes think we know that Taylor's going to do his job, that we forget that he's over there literally kicking butt every chance he possibly gets. Now, some other things that came out of training camp today was when Dan Campbell met with the media, they did start to ask him a couple questions about what he should kind of expect from the rookies on their first day of having padded practice with the vets. And Dan Campbell basically kind of said, like, hey, it may be kind of overwhelming for some of these guys. Some of these guys may walk away feeling like they might not be able to play in this league. Well, from the first day of pads for the Lions, it definitely doesn't feel like that was the case for both Jack Campbell and Brian Branch. These two young rookies are continuing to stack days on top of days and show why they were such highly sought after players by the Lions. If you didn't catch Inside the Den last night, you definitely need to take time to go watch that and see exactly how excited the Lions were to get both of these guys and how highly rated they both were on the Lions board, both almost basically being considered first round talents. And the Lions were able to get one of them definitely in the first round, but also still be able to get Brian Branch later into the second. That investment is really starting to pay off throughout training camp as Jack Campbell is still continuing to get more and more reps with the first team and even had snaps where they basically threw him out there to play the Mike linebacker spot by himself. That is the clear sign that Jack is trending in the right direction, is definitely earning the trust of the coaching staff. I was a big advocate that Jack would probably start playing his best football once they started putting on pads, and I feel like he didn't disappoint today. Having a great tackling drill with Sam Laporta, where he was able to win one rep just by getting two hands on him. And then when they went to the tackling aspect, also winning that rep and being able to get Sam down. And then also in team drills, being able to chase down Craig Reynolds and force a fumble and recover a fumble. Listen, I'm just of the belief that Jack Campbell is going to be an absolute gamer, and I'm still riding high on the belief that he'll be the week one starter when they go off to square against the Chiefs. Now, Brian Branch, it's still a little tricky figuring out exactly where Brian Branch's snaps are going to come from, but based on how much he's bouncing between the first and second team and how he continues to make play after play and continue to break up passes, it's really becoming difficult to think that he's not going to be a consistent feature on this Lions defense once the season rolls around. He had a great couple matchups with Khalif Raymond in one-on-one drills. And if anybody knows anything about Khalif, Khalif is a speedster. Khalif makes people look silly, if I were to use the words of Eric Schlitt that he basically communicated to Jeremy when they were talking about this very topic. And so the fact that like Brian Branch is able to stick with him, the fact that he is able to make it difficult, one goes to show that that 4.5 speed that we saw at the combine probably wasn't really, much to make a big fuss about, but it also shows just how versatile and how impactful Brian Branch can be and being able to use in a literally a number of different ways and matching up with a variety of different, wide receivers or running backs or tight ends once he's employed into the Lions defense. So overall, like the news coming out about both of those players has me through the roof. Inside the Den already had me riding high, but these guys being able to put pads on, roll out there with the vets and not really look lost is a huge sign. And again, not that there would have been anything wrong if they did. They're rookies. And like Dan Campbell said, it's perfectly fine. They may get a little winded. They may get a little overwhelmed at times. And that was definitely the case for some other rookies. Broderick Martin had a little bit of an up and down day where he had his good reps and he had his bad reps. Colby Sorsdahl had the same thing. Good rep, bad rep. These types of things are going to happen with the rookies. But for the most part, like Dan has been saying from day one, as long as they continue their trajectory upward, they're doing the right things. And the Lions are very confident in who is going to be able to help contribute for their team once they get to the regular season. Now, speaking of players that are expected to contribute a lot once the regular season rolls around, that brings up James Houston for me. Now, James Houston is someone that was getting a lot of hype and a lot of, fans were excited about what James Houston could potentially be doing in training camp this year round now that the Lions know what he's capable of. And a lot of the news that's been coming out isn't going to make a lot of you happy. James Houston, even at day 5 of training camp, is still mostly repping with the third team. And when you start wondering why and you start asking around, you start doing research, you start finding out It's basically because he's still struggling with some of the things that they want him to do outside of rushing the passer. They know that James can do that, and they know that he can do it effectively and that he can win those reps. But they also need James to be able to play against the run. They also need him to be able to drop into coverage when he's playing that Sam linebacker spot, and he's not doing that consistently enough. Now, I don't think that means that James is by any means in danger of being cut, but it's one of the few players that we've heard of at this point in training camp that isn't quite living up to expectations. I don't think James is necessarily regressing, but I just think he's not quite where some of us in the fan base thought he would be at this point in training camp. There's still plenty of room and there's still plenty of time for him to make that type of climb to where he's a more consistent figure in the second team, or even again, even if he's just utilized in pass rush situations once the final roster is solidified. But we do have to be patient and remember, James is still learning just like a lot of these other second year guys are. Some guys are going to be making bigger splashes, and some guys are going to be taking a little bit longer to develop and really hit their stride. At the end of the day, we're only at day 5 of training camp, day 1 of pads, and things are just going to get ramped up further and further as we continue to get into training camp. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Pride Detroit Training Camp Observation. If you did, go ahead and drop us a like for this video. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to drop us a sub and hit the notification bell so that way you can be notified anytime we drop new videos onto the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. Also, if you're looking for more coverage and you're looking for more information about what happened today at training camp, head over to the Pride Detroit website. There's a link in the description that'll take you over to Eric Schlitt's latest article where he covers a lot of the things that happened at training camp today and goes into way more detail. You can also check out the latest podcast episode that Jeremy and Eric did together right after training camp practice ended, and they cover a lot of things in that as well and kind of have a little more discussion and debate about things that they're seeing at training camp. So with all of that said, again, I'm Miko here with Pride Detroit. Appreciate you guys stopping by for the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.